I came back early from my business trip, and there was a man's pair of shoes on the floor. I quickly tiptoed to the door, grabbed my bag, and hurried outside. That was close, really close. I almost forgot that my wife, Anna Smith, has been seeing someone lately. I sat down with my luggage in the community. I lit a cigarette, watching the view while waiting for Anna Smith to finish whatever she was doing. I take the plane next time. It would cause me to go home 2 hours earlier. Not leaving any time for Anna Smith. That's really one way to ruin someone's happy moment, isn't it? The man was George, Anna Smith's first love. They'd dated for 3 years in high school, but broke up in college because of the distance. A few months ago, at a class reunion, old flames were rekindled. They say high school love is the purest. And, well, that's true. I've read all their chat records. Sweet, obsessed, and full of longing. A perfect pair of childhood sweethearts. How did it all go wrong? It wasn't until I put down my phone that I realized, wait, this is my wife we're talking about. Just as I was lost in thought, my phone rang. It was Amy, George's wife. Where's Anna? I could tell she must have noticed her husband had disappeared again. I said, don't bother looking. George is at my place. There was silence on the other end, then she snapped, he lying to me again. He said he was working late, but now he's in Anna's bed. How many times has this happened this month? How many times? I opened my memo app and counted. The 12th time. I answered honestly, they're so sweet together. Has George talked to you about divorce? No. Shouldn't he? Anna's been pressuring him so much. Last week, she almost confronted me about it. And it freaked me out. Can you stop joking around? Okay, I won't joke. But seriously, I can't wait any longer. I'm getting ready to take action. Everything's going according to plan. You're good on your end, right? No problem. I hung up the phone and glanced at the time. Only half an hour had passed. Suddenly, I had the urge to mess with them. I called Anna. It rang for a long time before she picked up. Henry? I greeted her enthusiastically. Anna, I'm at the gate of the community. Did you miss me? Ah. Anna couldn't help but yelled, but you be home for another hour or so? I came back early. I said, are you surprised? Oh, yes. There was a flurry of noise on the other end. I could tell both of them were probably freaking out. Henry, you must have a lot of luggage. Just sit down at the gate and rest for a bit. I'll come down to pick you up. Anna quickly tried to come up with a way to delay me, showing a bit of quick thinking. No thanks. I replied. LLB almost downstairs, give me 10 minutes at most. Huh. Henry, we're out of olive oil at home. Can you grab a bottle downstairs shop? Also, the hand soap is almost gone. I hung up the phone. I'm actually quite a kind person. I dawdled on the way back, giving them a few extra minutes to prepare. And then, right at the entrance to the building, I bumped into George. The moment he saw me, he froze. He quickly lowered his head and hurried past me. His hair was disheveled, his eyes frantic, the buttons on his suit misaligned, and his pants hung loose. Hey! Just as he was about to step out the door, I called out to him. He froze. Too scared to look back at me. I suppressed a smile and pointed to a business card on the floor. You dropped something. He sighed with relief, picked up the card, and quickly turned to leave. In his hurry, his briefcase dropped to the ground, spilling papers everywhere. Looks like he came straight from a client meeting. In such a rush, huh? I took the elevator up, got home, and entered the door code. As soon as I stepped inside, a strong scent of air freshener hit me. Anna was nervously blocking my way. Her face was flushed, her breathing uneven. Her clothes disheveled. "What are you doing at home?" I dragged my luggage into the bedroom. "Tired?" Anna followed closely behind me, trying to block the view of the bathroom. "Looks like she hadn't had time to tidy up in there." "Just doing a deep cleaning," she said, her voice a bit off. The bed was piled high with clothes, couldn't bother making the bed, so she just made it worse. I almost couldn't believe she came up with this excuse. I flopped onto the bed. The blanket was still warm. "Do you smell something?" I sniffed the air. "What smell?" Anna's expression was awkward. "I don't smell anything." I leaned in close, putting on a serious face. "No, you've got the smell of a man on you." Her face went pale in an instant, and her throat tightened, unable to say a word. "You used my shower gel, didn't you?" I said with a smile. She let out a breath of relief, pretending to be angry, and punched me lightly in the chest. "You're always so inappropriate." I narrowed my eyes. "What's this red mark on your neck?" Anna, who had just gotten her breath back, was startled again. She instinctively covered her neck and stammered. "Probably a bug bite." "Where did you get a bug bite from?" "Well, it's probably an allergy." She tightened her collar. "Maybe I accidentally brushed against some pollen on my way to work." I stared at her, smiling. Soon, beads of sweat began to form on her forehead. "Oh." I nodded. "I thought someone kissed you." "You're talking nonsense again." She pushed me, avoiding my gaze. "Stop making jokes all the time." "I'm not joking," I said. "While I was away, you were cheating." Anna froze, her eyes wide with shock. Her lips trembling. I pointed to the table where leftover takeout sat. "Didn't you say this stuff was unhealthy? So, when I'm gone, you eat it, huh?" She wiped her forehead. "It's just that work has been busy, and with you gone, no one was cooking for me. Geez, why are you so dramatic?" In just a few minutes, ID played her 3 times. She was completely flustered now. Seeing her so uncomfortable, I couldn't help but feel a rush of satisfaction. I was almost dying to see what kind of face she would make when I finally confronted her. I admit, I'm a little twisted. Nighttime. After Anna took a shower, she came to me, begging for sex. A wave of nausea hit me, and I barely stopped myself from throwing up. I quickly pushed her away, claiming I was too tired, and flopped onto the bed pretending to be asleep. She didn't suspect a thing. A little while later, she whispered my name. When she saw I wasn't waking up, she quietly slipped into the bathroom. Soon, my phone vibrated. The app ID secretly installed on her phone sent me her messages. "George, he didn't get suspicious, did he?" "Anna, no, just a little crazy." "George. Good. You really scared me today." "Anna, what's there to be scared of? We're getting divorced anyway." George, wiping sweat off. "Anna, have you told your wife yet? How much longer is this going to drag on? I can't stand it anymore." George, I'm preparing." "Anna, still preparing? How long has it been? If you don't say something soon, I'll just tell your wife myself." "George, please don't. Divorce isn't a small matter, there's a lot to discuss. Anna, you've got 1 more week." "George, well, talk about it then." 1 week left. I sat up. I added Anna's parents, the Smiths, and her close friends to a group chat. "Sorry to bother everyone so late, but here's the deal, it's almost my and Anna's anniversary, and I've planned a surprise for her this weekend. I'd love for everyone to come celebrate and catch up." "Wow, Henry, you're so romantic." Anna's best friend Becky commented. "Henry, What anniversary? Your wedding anniversary isn't for a while, Mrs. Smith asked. It's the 8th anniversary of us confirming our relationship. I casually made it up. Mrs. Smith, you have to come. I want to vlog the whole thing. Care to give us a hint? What's the gift? Anna's coworker Laura asked. Some flowers, cake, and a handbag Anna's been eyeing but hasn't bought yet. I went ahead and bought it for her, I said, making sure to add, please keep this a secret, I want to surprise her. The group immediately began discussing, their excitement almost spilling out of the screen. How did you wake up? Anna came out of the bathroom. My boss called. I waved my phone. I've got a business trip this weekend, won't be back until Tuesday. Another work weekend? Anna feigned disappointment. Nothing I can do about it, I said, forcing a bitter smile. Life really does feel like a play sometimes. The next morning, I saw their latest conversation. Anna, he won't be home this weekend. George, then him coming over. You better be ready for me. This was sent in the dead of night, right when I was about to fall asleep. Such urgency. Well, see each other this weekend. Weekend. Hotel. Excited. So excited. Becky, Anna's best friend, held a bouquet of flowers, her feet practically tapping the floor with excitement. Am I the one who's going to lead the cheer? Yeah, Anna's college roommate, Alice. Double-check the plan. You distract Anna, and handle the fireworks. Nate Smith, is the camera ready? Ready, Nate, Anna's brother, said, snapping a quick photo of us. Don't worry, I took photography as an elective in college. I've got the recording covered. Henry, you're really thoughtful. Mr. and Mrs. Smith took my hand and said softly, we are very relieved that Anna will marry you. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I promised you I would take care of Anna. This is the least I can do. The gift is all ready. Laura, Anna's colleague who was handling logistics, asked, when do we leave? Everyone turned to me. I glanced at my phone. Half an hour ago, Amy, George's wife, texted me that George was working late again. By now, he was likely already deep in his business meeting. We're heading out now. I waved. Everyone follow me. The convoy of cars rolled into the neighborhood, a sense of anticipation thick in the air. We headed upstairs, and the elevator was filled with an almost giddy atmosphere. As the elevator doors opened, everyone went still, holding their breath. The silence hung in the air like a balloon, expanding. Everyone waiting for the pop. The key lock clicked. I had brought my own key. I slid the key into the lock, gently turning the knob. Becky was the first to step inside. She tiptoed quietly to the bedroom door. Then, she swung the door open with a dramatic Anna, surprise, her voice cut off mid-sentence, as if the air had been sucked out of her. Her brain froze, and by the time the others reached her, they stopped dead in their tracks too. The second and third people froze as well. No sound. No movement. It felt as if the person lying on the bed wasn't Anna but Medusa herself. Those who looked at her were instantly turned to stone. Not a word was spoken. The camera in Nate's hands hit the floor with a loud thud, its battery flying a meter away. What's going on? I asked, feigning ignorance, walking toward the bedroom as I dialed the police. Henry. Nate stepped in front of me, looking flustered. His face was bright red, his eyes avoiding mine, but instinctively, he grabbed my sleeve. I stared directly into his eyes, waiting for an explanation. There must be a misunderstanding. He looked at me, pleading. Don't hit anyone, let's talk this through. A misunderstanding? I acted confused, surveying the room. Everyone looked down, nobody offering an explanation but stepping aside to make way for me. And then I saw it. On the bed was a man, pale and naked, lying awkwardly with a mortified expression. He tried to flee immediately, but the room was crowded, and with his clothes and the pillows scattered on the floor, there was nothing to cover himself with. He could only lie there, exposed, awaiting judgment. Anna lay beside him, her face hidden under the blanket, her hair messy, her exposed leg shaking uncontrollably. I knew this was the climax of the scene. Generally, there are two types of reactions when you catch someone cheating. If I were a fiery man, I'd rush in and punch the couple. If I were a lovesick fool, I'd grab Anna by the collar. No, wait, it's on the floor now. I'd shake her shoulders and ask her why she did this to me. But I wasn't either of those. I was a man with a dark heart. I was here to break her heart. I kicked George in the face and yelled, "Why are you bullying my wife?" Then I tightly embraced Anna, speaking softly, "Did he force you? Why didn't you tell me about your troubles?" A stir went through the crowd, and I heard Becky's heavy sigh from close by. To everyone else's eyes, I had meticulously planned a surprise for Anna, only to find out she had betrayed me. Not only was I heartbroken, but I immediately chose to believe there was a reason behind it all. Now, I held the moral high ground. "Anna, how are you going to play this one out? I'll make you pay for hurting my daughter." Mr. Smith was the first to understand what I meant. He slapped George hard across the face and turned to me with a gesture of loyalty. "I'll kill you." With Mr. Smith leading the charge, Nate followed, throwing a punch that sent blood flying from George's nose. Nate didn't stop there. He grabbed George by the hair and dragged him off the bed. George screamed, reaching for Anna's hand. Anna was yanked sideways, the blanket falling to the floor, exposing most of her body. She screamed, desperately trying to pull the blanket back up. Mrs. Smith rushed over to help cover Anna. But Nate, single-minded as always, yanked harder when he heard Anna's scream. "You dare touch my sister?" Anna and Mrs. Smith were no match for Nate's raw strength. In the end, it was a one-sided tug-of-war. Nate won, and Anna lay exposed, completely naked. I noticed someone in the crowd discreetly recording the scene on their phone. I subtly shifted my position. Not blocking the camera when taking pictures is basic decency, right? Who called the cops? The police had arrived outside. I quickly walked up to them, gripping their hands, and said with a tearful voice, "My wife has been raped." The officer paused for a moment, then patted my hand in sympathy. "It wasn't rape, it wasn't rape." Hearing this, George panicked. With newfound strength, he broke free from Anna's family's assault and shouted, "We know each other. She called me here. Ask her if you don't believe me." The officer shot him a disgusted look, then turned to Anna. "Do you know him?" This was my second challenge for Anna. If she denied knowing George, he would be charged with rape. But he would certainly defend himself, revealing all the details of their affair. That would make for some real drama. On the other hand, if she admitted to the affair, her statement would become crucial evidence for my divorce and claims for emotional damages. Either way, I was in the clear. Now, the pressure was on Anna. Mrs. Smith had found her some pajamas, and everyone watched as Anna, looking a little disoriented, stood there. "Do you know him?" the officer asked again. "Please answer truthfully." Anna nodded slightly. George let out a relieved breath. Mr. Smith's face turned ashen, and he slapped her hard across the face. "How did I raise someone like you?" I wasn't surprised by the outcome. Anyone with eyes could tell they knew each other. After all, there were even some of Anna's high school classmates in the crowd. But the drama still had to unfold. I acted like I couldn't believe it and ran out of the house, shouting in disbelief. The second phase of my revenge had begun. I booked a 7-day stay at an esports hotel and turned off my phone. Then, I opened up the games in my favorites. I officially entered my happy little world. Whenever I got tired of playing, I'd order takeout and watch movies. My days were full and carefree. In a daze. I felt like I had somehow gone back to my college days. There was no one pushing me to endlessly strive for a bigger house or higher salary. No one was frowning at me when I decided to take a break. I spent less than $3,000 in those 7 days. But the happiness I gained was worth more than the 5 years I spent in my marriage. It turns out, you don't truly appreciate something until it's gone. You wouldn't know how amazing single life can be unless you've been married once. A week later, I turned off the Do Not Disturb setting and opened my social media. My phone buzzed non-stop for over half an hour. Scrolling through, I saw a flood of unread messages. I skimmed through them quickly. Anna and the Smiths had been trying to reach me like crazy. Mr. and Mrs. Smith said Anna had completely changed and begged me to give her one more chance. They promised that from now on, if I said go east, she'd never go west. They sounded so convincing. Meanwhile, the gossip crowd was having a field day, expressing their sympathy for me. I browsed through the live updates of the Smith family. On the first day, the whole town was buzzing. Major media outlets and influencers were reposting and commenting. I was included in a segment titled Why Men Don't Want to Get Married Anymore. By day 2, Anna's family hadn't even left their house. The local public opinion was enough to drown them. By day 3, Anna's company released an announcement. They stated her actions had seriously damaged the company's reputation. And she was fired. Anna didn't dare return to collect her things. So the company sent someone to throw all her belongings into the trash. By day 4, I was still following the drama closely when I got a call from her family. "Hello?" I answered. "Henry. Finally, you're answering." Mr. Smith's excitement was like Columbus discovering the New World. "Where are you?" "We're coming to find you. We've had a serious talk with Anna. We know you still have feelings for her, so don't, they'll come to you." I cut him off. "There are some things we need to clear up face to face." "All right. But Henry. After all these years, please don't do anything rash, all right? Don't make any foolish decisions. All these years of love? I used to think Anna and I would grow old together. But it wasn't until I looked at the chat logs that I realized. All these years, in the gaps of our life, someone else's shadow had always been there. Anna didn't pursue me because of the reasons she claimed, like my stable and ambitious nature or how handsome I looked when I was working. No, the truth was, George had been flirting with other girls. And she couldn't stand it. She wanted to find someone to make him jealous. We got married 3 years later. Moving the wedding up by 6 months wasn't about better timing or anything like that. It was just to get married the day before George, to irritate him. In the first 2 years, Anna got pregnant, but without consulting me, she had an abortion. Her excuse was, "I'm in the peak of my career, we're still young, we can have children later." It's disgusting. Nate had been waiting at the community entrance. As soon as he saw me, he came over enthusiastically. The kid had a cap and a mask on, looking like he couldn't bear to face anyone. On the way, he hesitated several times, as if wanting to say something but never did. He just gave my back a soft pat. Mr. and Mrs. Smith looked at me with guilt in their eyes. After all, I was now unshaven, with deep-set eyes, and bloodshot from staying up all night gaming. I looked like someone who'd been hurt by love. "Henry, this was Anna's fault. We've given her a good talking to. Do you think?" I raised my hand to interrupt Mr. Smith. My voice was hoarse. "Where is she? It's better to talk face to face." "Yes. Henry's right. Let the young ones sort it out themselves. Henry's a good kid, I believe he'll handle things with care." Mrs. Smith said, "Do whatever you want, shout, hit, whatever, but life goes on." I pushed the bedroom door open. Anna was curled up on the bed, staring blankly at the window. She flinched when she saw me enter but didn't dare look at me. She looked even more haggard than before. Her lips were dry, and her eyelids were swollen. She'd clearly been crying a lot. Why was she crying? Regret? If she really regretted it, she'd have been more careful not to get caught, right? "Henry wants to talk to you. You listen carefully." Mrs. Smith's voice was filled with concern as she gave her one last warning. "Do you remember what I told you before?" The door clicked shut. The room went completely quiet. Anna continued staring at the window, but her fingers were white from clutching the blanket. "Let's cut to the chase," I said. "What do you plan to do about this?" After a moment of silence, Anna finally spoke. "I owe you an apology, but let's just get a divorce." This was the result after they'd taught her a lesson. But I wasn't surprised at all. I knew Anna too well. She couldn't handle pressure. The more you forced her, the more she'd resist. And now, after fantasizing about love for so long, how could she just give it up? But right now, her attitude still wasn't strong enough. I had to fuel the fire. "What if I don't agree?" She looked up at me and said softly, "Henry, forcing something that isn't meant to be never ends well." "Heh, how amusing," I laughed. 3 years of dating, 5 years of marriage, a legally recognized relationship, and now you're saying it's all forced. What exactly did I force you into? Did I hold a knife to your throat and make you marry me? I'm sorry. Anna closed her eyes, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I can compensate you if you agree to the divorce." At that moment, Mr. Smith, who had been eavesdropping outside, could no longer hold himself back. He rushed in and slapped her across the face. "I told you to shut up." "Divorce? Go live with that bastard, let the whole world laugh at us." Anna covered her face, shouting, "I want a divorce. He was my first love, my true love. I have regrets about my youth. I don't want to live the rest of my life with those regrets." Anger flared in my chest, burning so much that my heart ached with each beat. "Anna, don't you dare say another word." Mr. Smith raised his hand again. I said, "All right, they'll let you go, but do you really think he'll divorce for you?" "Of course he will. You don't understand us." "Really?" I couldn't help but sneer. That only spurred Anna's determination. "He'll prove to you how much he loves me." "Fine. You'd better prove it to me." The day after I left Anna's house, Mr. and Mrs. Smith kicked her out and publicly declared that they had no daughter. I wasn't surprised by this outcome. But now, Anna had no escape route left. Her first love, George, became her only salvation. But unlike Anna, I had left George plenty of options. First, his wife, Amy, was still pretending to know nothing. This was because Amy was out of town. Even though things were chaotic here, she shouldn't know anything. Second, Amy's and George's social circles didn't overlap, and no one was going to rat him out. So, while Anna couldn't leave the house for now, the impact on George's side was practically non-existent. He was living his normal life, working, eating, sleeping. To ease my mind, I tried testing Amy's reactions a few times. George was scared of Amy because he was dependent on her. A couple of years ago, he lost everything due to stock investments and lost his job. But thanks to his good looks and smooth talking, he managed to latch onto Amy. Amy was the only child in her family and owned 2 factories. In the past 2 years, although George had taken on the title of vice president at the company, and Amy's father had started delegating more authority, the stocks remained under Amy's name. George's so-called glamorous position was just for show. He could be replaced at any time. It all depended on Amy's word. So, the $1 million salary Anna and George had boasted about was, in reality, far from true. No wonder Anna, even with nothing left, was so determined to divorce me. George's love for her was questionable too. It's always hard for someone in the midst of it all to see clearly. Anna thought George was plotting a divorce. But I could see it right away. George didn't want to divorce Amy, he wanted a stable family life. Amy was out of town, having his children. Anna was right there, throwing herself at him. He was living off Amy's money and enjoying Anna's love. He was getting the best of both worlds. The day after the cooling-off period for the divorce ended, Anna and I rushed to the courthouse to finalize our divorce. Anna signed without hesitation, no dragging her feet. She even showed up with makeup on. Looks like she had a date lined up afterward. Watching her leave without a second glance, I extinguished the last bit of pity I had for her. I turned around and called Amy, telling her that today was the day. At 6 o'clock in the evening, my monitoring app alerted me that Anna had ordered takeout and requested that the delivery driver bring a pack of cigarettes. I lied, claiming it was the delivery driver who knocked on the door. The door opened, and Anna's expression turned to one of shock. "Why are you here?" I smiled faintly. "Are you two still together?" Anna slammed the door shut. "What's that to you?" I quickly wedged my foot in the door. She shoved at me several times, but couldn't move me. Furious, she yelled, "Henry, we're divorced. You have no right to interfere with my private life." George, hearing the commotion, came to the door. When he saw me, he visibly flinched, perhaps recalling the terror of that swollen face from before. "Get out of here, or I'll call the cops," Anna hissed, baring her teeth. Her ugly expression made me feel disgusted. "Fine, call the cops. It'll be fun when they show up and the house owner finds out who I am." Hearing that, George's face turned pale. He quickly blocked Anna and said, "Stop it. You two were once married. Don't make this uglier than it already is." I had to admire him. Quick-witted as always, even now, trying to play the good guy. I chuckled. "Look at that, George actually knows how to act." George gave a forced smile. I added, "In return, I will praise you in front of Amy." I pulled out my phone, dialing Amy's number, and flashed the video I had recorded that day. "Let's send this video, shall we? Give Amy a little shock." Anna scoffed. "Henry, I thought you had some tricks up your sleeve." "Go ahead, send it. Anyway, he's about to divorce her. So what's there to be afraid of?" I took a sharp breath. I had never seen a mistress so brazen and unapologetic. I was about to nod and agree, when George grabbed my hand. "Stop. Let's talk this through." Anna's smile froze on her face. "George, what are you doing?" George ignored her completely. "Are you short on cash? I can give you some." "Name your price, as long as you delete that video," I laughed. "Aren't you in a hurry to divorce her?" George's expression darkened. Anna clenched her teeth, pulling George toward her, wanting to confront him head-on. The moment he turned his head slightly, I was ready to hit send. As expected, George obediently turned. With me on the right and Anna on the left, the tug-of-war put George in a tough spot. Finally, unable to take it anymore, he shoved Anna hard. "Can you just leave me alone? Can't you see there's something going on here?" Anna stumbled backward and fell to the floor, lying still for a long time. Did she break her heart, or just her pride? I couldn't resist adding fuel to the fire and began reading their affair messages aloud. "Anna, I've always liked you. If it weren't for the kids, I would have divorced her long ago. When I look back, it was all my fault. You don't know how regretful I am. Now, heaven has given me a second chance, and I'll cherish it. I'll hold your hand and never let go. I love you, Anna. No man can love you the way I do." I paused, cleared my throat. Stop it. George couldn't take it anymore. How much do you want? I don't want money. Don't think everyone's like you, putting money above all else. I said, now, I'll give you two choices. Either you hit her, or I send this to Amy. You decide. Almost as soon as the words left my mouth, George didn't hesitate for a second before slapping Anna across the face. Smack. The sharp sound echoed, and the world suddenly went quiet. Anna turned her face to the side, her hair falling over her face, a red slap mark slowly appearing on her pale cheek. She sat frozen in place, tears starting to flow as her body began to shake. I crouched down, grabbing Anna's chin and staring directly into her eyes. I said slowly, word by word, "This is the love you wanted to prove to me? Is this the great love you'd follow, even if it ruins you? I thought you meant so much to him." My words were finished. It was time to exit. I had just sent the signal, and Amy's furious shouting and cursing exploded from outside the door. "George, how dare you keep a mistress behind my back?" Amy stormed in with a few burly men and began slapping George, one after another. "When we got married, what did you promise me? You eat my food, use my money, and still dare to cheat on me? Divorce. We're getting a divorce today. Get out of my house." The men grabbed George by the arms and legs, and he turned to me, yelling, "You promised you wouldn't send this to Amy." I shrugged. My finger slipped. Then Amy kicked him hard in the groin. A dull thud echoed. I could have sworn I heard something crack. George's eyes bulged, his body curled, veins popped on his neck. His face turned so red it looked like it might bleed. It wasn't just me. All the men present instinctively clenched their legs. George lay on the floor, bent like a shrimp. "Stop playing dead. Get up. Now, right now, let's go to the courthouse." "Amy, I was wrong." George struggled to spit out a few words. Amy wasn't buying it. Of course, after all that time. Would she change her mind just because of a few words? George reached out to grab Amy's foot, but she stomped on his hand with her heel. "Amy." Seeing Amy ready to leave, George quickly scrambled to his feet and chased after her. The room was soon left with only Anna and me. "You're not going to confront him face-to-face today? You're really okay with this?" I said softly. Hearing that, Anna immediately got up and chased after them. In the busy, bustling night market, people soon witnessed this scene. A woman walked quickly ahead, while a man with his legs squeezed together and hands clasped in apology followed closely behind her. Behind them was another woman, hands on her hips, questioning the man, "Which of the things you said were true? Do you want me or her? Say it clearly." It was obvious, catching a cheating lover. The gossip-loving crowd flocked around. Some onlookers even pulled out their phones and started live streaming. "Amy, calm down." George almost kneeled to beg, "You already have a stomach condition. If you get too worked up, it'll hurt your health." His words were so sweet. Amy sneered, "You talk nicely. But when you make me angry to death, you are going to marry a mistress?" George, looking like a tragic figure, said, "Oh, come on, how could I? She's the one who seduced me." Anna, already angry from being ignored, was now so furious that she almost couldn't catch her breath. "George, explain to me, what do you mean, I seduced you?" George ignored her again, turning to Amy. "Forgive me this time, I promise it won't happen again. The child needs a complete family." Amy said, "I spent so much money, even if I got a dog, at least I know who its owner is." Divorce. She spotted Anna and her fury flared even more. "And you even let her wear my pajamas? Damn, George, you really have some nerve." Hearing that, George turned and grabbed Anna's pajamas, ripping them off her. In the blink of an eye, Anna was completely exposed. I didn't even have time to react. George, holding the pajamas in his hands like a treasure, offered them to Amy. "Amy, your things will always be yours." Amy stood there, stunned. "Are you sure this will work?" Amy and I had booked a room at a hotel. I said, "Stop looking. Your husband is at my place right now. From the window of this room, I could see my house perfectly. You still don't trust me?" I chuckled. "After all this time working together, which step hasn't been within my expectations?" "I want him to get nothing," Amy said, still a bit uneasy. "Don't worry." I had Amy tell George that if he wasn't going to divorce, he at least had to sever all ties with Anna. When George heard that, he quickly patted his chest and assured her there wouldn't be a problem. He even said he'd record the whole conversation to show her. Knowing George's nature, who knows how ruthless he'd get in his words. And with Anna's reputation in ruins, completely forsaken by everyone, I knew she wouldn't let it slide that easily. The negotiation was happening today. I lit a cigarette and leaned against the window, waiting quietly. Hours passed, and there was still no movement from the room. Amy wanted to send a text to check in, but I stopped her. I had a feeling something big was about to happen. Sure enough, a few police cars screeched to a stop outside. Anna, covered in blood but eerily calm, got into one of the police cars. "Love affair dispute turned murder case." The news headline, printed in a tiny box, was the final fate of this love story. I lit the newspaper on fire, the cold wind carrying the ashes into the sky. In the distance, the city lights twinkled. The moon hung high, and the stars were few.